I once believed that my marriage to Lisa was unbreakable, until I uncovered her secret with another man. This man is not just any other guy, he's a lawyer, her work associate. The agony of betrayal and the complicated emotions for Emily are intertwined, forcing me to reevaluate my life. In this sea of love, where will I drift? Let's fully listen to today's story of infidelity. If you enjoy this story, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Thank you for your support. How the hell could she do this to me again? I'm sitting here like some kind of fool. It's late and I'm sitting in an empty house, lit only by a nightlight. In the kitchen I listen to soft jazz, but my thoughts are far away. My thoughts are in an upscale hotel on the other side of town. I feel mixed emotions. They are all fighting inside me. I'm angry, frustrated, nervous and can't relax. It feels like my mind is trying to process 1,000 thoughts at once. Adding to my confusion is an element that I cannot fully explain. It's just there in the background. Among everything else I'm feeling mostly, I'm angry. Angry. My wife, to whom I have been married for 15 years, is in a hotel room with another man. A stranger. Well, he's a stranger to me. She says she needs it. She asked me to go home but not to wait for her. Doesn't she understand that this is impossible for me? I can't just sit here and wait while she has sex with another man. Never. I decided I wouldn't be here when she returned, so I walked up the stairs, quickly, put a change of clothes into a small bag, grabbed my coat and wallet, a bottle of wine from the counter, and headed for the door. There's a decent motel a few miles away. I can stop there until I figure out what to do in the car. I just sit and think. She said that if I didn't want her to go to this man, she wouldn't go. I guess she thought I'd just go along with it. A blunder on her part, I'd say, because I defied this. Well, my wife said no. Don't go. I told her not to do it, but she went anyway. I guess she didn't want the hassle of going behind my back with my voluntary consent. So what was my next step at that moment? Just grab her hand, drag her into the car, and take her home. It would be manly, although a little crone acne. It wouldn't do anything. She would just do it behind my back, the first chance she got. This is not the first time for my dear wife. 5 years ago she had an affair that almost destroyed our marriage. Then she slept with a client for several weeks before I found out about. It was the only affair I knew about, and her actions tonight made me wonder if there were more out there that I didn't know about. Damn it. Damn her to hell, I thought as I sharply slammed on the brakes and pressed the starter button. I didn't want to take my anger out on my little Jeep. It just turned out to be a convenient substitute for it. I headed to the motel and checked in. He pulled out a bottle of dark red wine from a small bag of clothes and began to get serious about it. Since tomorrow, and in fact today, was Saturday, I had nothing to do, so getting drunk seemed like a reasonable option. My name is Alex. My wife, Lisa, and I have been married for 15 years. We don't have children and we live in a prestigious area. I'm a corporate finance manager and Lisa is a successful real estate broker. At 36 years old, Lisa is petite and slender, with dark brown hair and beautiful emerald green eyes. She's amazing, without a doubt. The thought of her petite figure now being enjoyed by another man drives me crazy. Our marriage wasn't the best. We had problems, like everyone else, and probably even more than most. After her affair, our intimate life became somewhat ordinary. You could say it has become a marriage of convenience, a convenience for our professional lives. I know professionals don't like to admit it, but in business society it is more acceptable to be married. It shows stability and reliability to potential clients and senior management. I always noticed how men looked at Lisa when she walked down the street. Then why not? They are probably attracted by her incredibly beautiful green eyes and the natural sway of her slender figure when she walks. Lisa became somewhat restless over the years of our marriage since we married. Young, I imagine, she wondered what it would be like to be with another man. Well, she found out at least once that I knew about it. We had some hard times after her affair, but we got through it. I almost divorced her. When I found out, In the end, I let her know that in life there are second chances, but there are no third chances. So here we are again. As I said, we got married early. Lisa was only 19 when we started dating and barely 21 when we got married, and I wasn't much older. Sometimes I think she feels deprived of the normal experience of dating other men before marriage. She had been bubbly and sweet in college and before marriage, but after her first failed pregnancy early in our life together, something changed about her. She became distant, not so young and cheerful. She threw herself into her work and then her real estate broker's license. We stayed together mostly because of our comfortable lifestyle. Busy jobs and maybe just a habit we don't have children because Lisa can't have them. We tried it. Option was just an idea that we put off due to our busy social and professional lives. We just never got around to it. Honestly, I think her inability to have children in itself simply discouraged her from raising someone else's child. To spice up our lives, we tried role-playing games and even played meeting at the bar, like some couples did, to drum up interest early on in playing this game. I made the mistake of expressing the fantasy that she might be with another man. It was just a fantasy, but she remembered that I said it at that moment. She reacted with a puzzled look, saying, "Would you really like to see me with someone else?" Thomas. My reaction was immediate. No, God. No, of course not. Darling. The moment you start explaining reservation, you only make the situation worse. I would never want to lose this tiny beauty, especially in this way. You may ask what the original attraction was. Well, I was an athlete in college, mostly baseball, some track, and Lisa and her best friend Emily were cheerleaders. I dated Emily before Lisa, but I fell in love with Lisa's incredible emerald eyes and sweet, petite figure. Of course superficial, but what do you expect from a student? More hormones than brain. Cute and petite. What you don't like? Were we in love? Yes, probably at the beginning and for several years after. People's lives become busy due to work and other activities. And then there was that terrible night when she lost the baby. We were both so eagerly awaiting. The doctor later informed her that she would not be able to have children. Something in her had clearly switched off. A former athlete remains an athlete. I always stayed active, cycling, skiing racquetball with friends and playing a little baseball with former classmates. Lisa joined me in some of these activities, not racquetball or baseball, but skiing and cycling. She loved tennis and I joined her in this activity, but she was much better than me. I consider myself fitter than most 38-year-old men, about 5'11" in tall, weighing 170 pounds. I'm not classically handsome, but female friends often tell me that I'm cute, whatever that means. On this particular Friday night, I wanted to take my wife out for dinner and drinks, to celebrate closing a deal with one of her clients. We went to a nice restaurant and had a great meal. She loves champagne, but I think it's rubbish, so I took a glass of red wine with my steak. The only thing I still remember from this dinner was that a tall, handsome man of about 28 to 30 years old smiled at Lisa as he passed by. I didn't think much of it. She often received such attention. After a minute or two, Lisa excused herself, saying she wanted to go to the ladies' room to wash her sticky fingers from food. We were planning to go to one of our favorite bars after dinner, but as I parked, Lisa said, "Alex, let me come in by myself and give me about 15 to 20 minutes. I saw a cute flower shop a few blocks away. Can you buy me a nice rose before you come in?" "Thank you, darling." I frowned at this request but reluctantly agreed and opened the door for her. She smiled and kissed me, then walked into the bar alone. I thought this was another iteration of our bar game. In our version of this game, Lisa and I walked into the bar separately. She always attracted men at the bar and some bought her drinks before I arrived. When I arrived, I would sit next to her, buy her a drink or two. We talked and I tried to scare off other suitors. We left together, went home and had sex. This feeling lasted for a few days, but then again it became difficult to even just get a kiss from her. I got into the car, pressed the starter button, and smooth jazz music poured out of the speakers. I sat there for a couple of minutes. Then I turned the car around and went to look for a flower shop. I don't mind buying flowers for Lisa. I've done it many times over our years together. I walked into the store and told the little blonde behind the counter that I needed a very special red rose for a very special lady. She muttered something about how she wished some nice guy would do it for her, but came back with a very nice specimen. I smiled, paid her, and said thank you. Honey, back in the car I didn't know what to do. It was too early to go to Lisa's bar, so I drove around for another 10 minutes until curiosity got the better of me and I returned to the bar. It had been quite some time since we played this stupid game at the bar that I was a little curious and a little scared. Nervous. What is my dear wife up to? I walked into the bar and saw Lisa sitting at the counter with a drink. She also had an empty glass in front of her and several empty glasses in front of the next chair. I gave her a full 20 minutes and it was actually about half an hour since I dropped her off. I walked over, sat next to her, and ordered a beer from the bartender. Lisa smiled and said, Alex, honey. She seemed a little nervous news to me. Did she talk to the stranger who was now gone? Did she meet anyone here? I did not know. Clearing her throat and taking another sip, she began talking. Alex, darling, do you remember how we often talked about your fantasy while I was with another man? Well, I guess maybe I said okay. Then tell me how you feel about it now. Her dark eyes sparkled as she spoke. Well, I don't know. I think a lot of men have some kind of fantasy about their wives or girlfriends with another man. I think this is quite common. But a fantasy is just a fantasy. Something that isn't necessarily what you want to happen in real life. I looked at her for a moment and continued. I believe that, under the right circumstances and with precautions, this could be interesting. Is there any particular reason why you are asking this? After insisting that I give you time alone, then I handed her the rose. Oh, by the way, that was the most beautiful rose in the store. I looked at everything. Thank you, Alex. She's beautiful, she said, bringing the flower to her nose, closing her eyes and inhaling deeply the sight of her breasts, even as she inhaled the scent of the rose. I offered did not escape me and my body reacted to it. The bartender brought my beer and another drink for Lisa, and we clinked glasses and took a sip. Now it was my turn to clear my throat, risking the question. So Lisa, what's going on? My eyes searched her face for any hint of what would happen next. Then she put down her drink, put her hand on mine and said, you know, darling, I have a fantasy too. And I thought I would like to fulfill it tonight. If you don't mind, your fantasy made me think a little. Not serious at first, but it grew into something I think I want, honey. I'd like to be with another man tonight. After finishing speaking, she nervously bit her lower lip, waiting for my reaction. The lightning that struck me at that moment would have been softer than what I felt was to be with another man. Her statement hung in the air. Her heart skipped a beat. All the torment over her affair came flooding back. Here we are again. I silently cursed my decision to marry such a beautiful and desirable woman. The only thing I could say was, do you want to do this today? Is it someone you met here? Or is it someone you had an arrangement with agreement? That's all she said. She continued to look at me intently before I could think of what to say next. She continued, Alex, darling, you know I love you and we have a very good life together. But this is something I've been thinking about for a while and decided that I would do so if given the opportunity. Today, in a restaurant, a very handsome young man smiled at me as he headed to the men's room. I waited a minute and, as you know, I went to the ladies' room to freshen up. I took a business card out of my purse, wrote the name of this bar on the back and asked the man to meet me after he saw us leave. I handed him the card and ran into the ladies' room. I washed my hands and took off my panties at random in my purse. She paused, trying to understand my reaction, her beautiful emerald eyes darting over my face before continuing. He was here with me at the bar and I told him I only had 20 minutes but that I would like to meet him later somewhere. He's in town on business until tomorrow and I have his room number. She laid it all out quickly and again waited for my reaction. After a few seconds I responded, I really don't know what to say. Lisa, didn't our marriage almost fall apart because of your affair some time ago? I think it's a one-way deal. You have sex with another man. But I think I won't have sex with another woman. Right. I tried to take a reasonable approach and not explode. Since she's the woman I love. I was hurt and I really didn't know how to react. No, Alex. This is for me, and I would be very hurt if you entered into any kind of reciprocal relationship with another woman. I want to do. This is what I need. And I want you to go home. I may be late, so there's no need to wait for me. Alex, I know it's a lot to ask, but if you love me as much as you say you do, you'll let me do this. I think this can help us again. She waited for my reaction to her statement. I made a mental note that the word "I" was used a lot in that statement. It would be weird for me to hand over you to another man so he could well sleep with you. I'll call a taxi. His hotel is nearby, but I won't tell you what hotel he's at. And I wish you would just go home and not follow me. Alex, honey, can you do this one thing for me? Then she added, honey, if you really don't want me to do this, I won't. You're my husband and I love you. But I ask this as a favor. My reaction was immediate then. No, I don't want you to do this. Can't we just have another drink and go home? Let me make love to my wife. I insisted. I don't want you to do this. Lisa, I can't stop you. But I asked you not to do this. Alex, I know we've had problems before. But you have to remember that I ran your house and cooked your meal for 15 years and was faithful for the last 5 years. What I'm trying to say, Alex, is that I need to do this and you need to let me. I have all these feelings, Alex, and I need to explore them. I ask that you respect my privacy in this. Without another word, I reluctantly stood up from the chair, leading Lisa there, and headed back to the car. I suppose I could grab her and force her into the car, but that would be pointless. She would just do it another time without telling me, and, like I said, I think she told me this to legitimize her ability to do it again without resorting to secrecy for some reason, perhaps to make up for lost time. She wants to see other men and wants me to be okay with it. I sat in the car for a full minute before I pressed the starter button and drove another block, parking between two cars and waiting. A minute later, Lisa was waiting for a taxi in front of the bar. 2 or 3 minutes later, a taxi came and she got in. Should I follow a taxi or just go home? The taxi turned around and I followed slowly at a safe distance. I felt like some kind of scoundrel. A stalker. I just needed to know where she was going. When the taxi pulled up in front of a fancy hotel, I parked a block behind. She met a tall man in front of the hotel, put arms around his neck and rose on her tiptoes to kiss him. This man was indeed the same one who smiled at her in the restaurant when they entered the hotel. I had nothing else to do but go home. Which brings us to the present moment, as I try to make sense of this situation in my crummy little motel room. Why does she think she can just do this? She used all the right words. I love you. Darling, if you love me, you'll let me, damn it. I felt disgusting. I regretted ever having a sexual fantasy, and I regretted even more that I had shared it with Lisa. It also occurred to me that my fantasy had nothing to do with this. It was her fantasy. She even said it herself. She saw the men look at her and smile or make nice remarks as they passed by and had to wonder what it would be like to be with one of them. Since I was alone in this miserable room, I mentally replaced being with in the last sentence with sleeping with one of them. Let's call a spade a spade. She wanted sex with another man and maybe do it from time to time. What I didn't know was whether this was a one-time thing or something she wanted on a regular basis. Of course she was not going to tell me about it. To hell with this. I won't be here when she gets home. That's what I decided when I returned home. So here I am drinking heavily from the bottle of wine I brought with me. Still nervous but emotionally exhausted, I quickly fell asleep. I didn't even set the alarm and turned off the phone. I vowed to speak with our corporate lawyer on Monday morning, so he could give me a recommend for a good lawyer in case it came to that. The next morning I had a big breakfast at a local restaurant, and drank a lot of coffee. Hot black at the restaurant. I turned on my phone and sure enough there were 3 messages from Lisa. She asked where was if I was coming home. If we could just talk about it. Something like that. I decided that I would have to go home and talk to her. I had every right to just throw that out the door. Call a divorce lawyer and take everything she had from her. I put this feeling aside because I wanted to know why. When I arrived home, she seemed to have just taken a shower, although it was already late in the morning. She was wearing a short yellow summer dress and sandals. Unlike last night, she was wearing a bra and panties. She was a beautiful sight. She came down the stairs and I waited at the bottom. I didn't get to see much under her skirt, but enough to notice her smooth thighs. When she came down the last step, she put her arms around my neck to kiss me. I pulled her hands away and moved her to arm's length. I told her that we need to talk first. We decided to sit on the patio on the shady side of the pool and I poured some iced tea into a large frozen glass pitcher. I asked her directly what she remembered about last night. She thought for a second and I saw little wheels of awareness spinning in her head about the events of the previous night. She asked, well, what exactly do you remember about out last night, Alex? She was preparing herself for what she might hear from me. I remember wanting to take my beautiful wife out for dinner and drinks to celebrate closing on the house. I remember dropping you off at our favorite bar and how you asked for some alone time at the bar. When I came back, I was holding this. When I met you later, I handed her the rose. She took it and smelled it, then put it on the table, at the bar. You said that you wanted to accept an invitation from a man to meet him at his hotel. I think your exact words were, I want to do this. This is what I need. I took your words as truth and asked you not to do it, but it was something you were going to do, regardless of my feelings. I think you misjudged me, Lisa, thinking that I would somehow tell you that this was normal. I could get you in the car and take you home, I guess, but I felt that this would always be something that would be between us, with a sort of an itch you needed to scratch. In the end, I had no choice but to watch you leave for another man. Lisa. I had a sharp tone in my voice, but I continued. I want to understand why you need this. I saw that she was nervous. Her short skirt trod up her thighs as she shifted in her seat. I remember everything before the taxi ride to this man's hotel, and I know I went there with him. But after 3 glasses of wine with dinner, the drinks at the bar and a few drinks before we went to his room, I was pretty drunk. You know I'm not much of a drinker, Alex, and that I get a little off after too much alcohol. She made excuses. Nonsense. Lisa, what's that? I know you well enough. Honey, you were drunk before, but you remembered what happened. Give me an answer. I can understand. I want to understand you. Darling. I started to attack a little more aggressively. She thought for a moment and said, Alex, you know how our sex life has been lately. I thought maybe this would just be a continuation of our bar game and other role-playing games we came up with. I was hoping that if you relaxed a little about me, our sex life and marriage would get better. This could be beneficial for us in the long run. Thomas, how the hell will having sex with someone else help our sex life? Looks like it will help your sex life and his. I don't see how this will improve mine. I'm not going to play that crap. Lisa, after a second or two I continued. I really hope that this was a one-time event and that I wouldn't have to see my beautiful wife waiting for a taxi to go to another lover again. If this is the case, I will be angry and it will be very difficult for us to go through this again. We've been through this before, honey, she retorted. Alex, my head is pounding, so I'm really not in the mood to discuss this right now. Unless you want a detailed account of what happened. I was sure I wouldn't get a better discussion. Well, she had a headache. I replied, no, I don't want to hear the details. Lisa, I was disappointed that I wasn't making any progress talking to her. I saw this as another betrayal. My reluctance to ask her more questions was due to the pain, anger and humiliation I felt after learning about her latest affair. She told me then that it was over and that she wasn't in love with that guy. But this was different because she was more open about her desire to do it. There was nothing more to discuss, So I got up and went into the house. In the glass doors. As I walked towards the house, I saw that she had taken off her dress, bra and panties and dived into the pool. The last thing I saw was her perfect little buttocks plunging into the water. I took my sports bag and headed to the club. Remember, I told her that she wouldn't have another third chance. It's easy to say, but now she forces me to back up those words with actions. Am I really going to kick her out of the house? Shall we try to start over? If she wants to continue seeing him or anyone else, and God forbid involving me and her being with other men, that will be a problem. A big problem. I can't imagine staying in this situation. I would throw this guy out on the street naked. I can handle most men my size or even a little larger. I'm not going to become someone else. I decided to put off talking to my lawyer and wait a day or two to talk to Lisa when her head was a little clearer. I also had the idea of talking to Lisa's friend, Emily. She's Lisa's childhood friend, but she's actually a mutual friend of ours. Like I said, she's my ex-girlfriend. She and I meet regularly for lunch as we both work downtown. And it's time again. Lisa trusts her, and I know Emily would tell me if she knew anything that could harm me. Lisa knows that we sometimes have lunch together and has nothing against it. Emily is sweet and beautiful and has a curvy figure, but is very slim. I just need one more look at this before I consider legal action. So Emily will be my girl on this one. When I returned from the club, Lisa became more flexible and cooked us a nice dinner. We talked about our current problem, but it became a bit of a vicious circle. Nothing was getting resolved. She was convinced that this was what she needed periodically for her peace of mind, and I was equally sure that I could not afford it. We were both tired of this, and Lisa changed into a small two-piece swimsuit and headed back to the pool. I decided to join her. She looked amazing and she knew it. Her tiny swimsuit showed off all her assets. As we swam together, the conversation returned to the usual things between husband and wife. We made love. Maybe I was trying to win her back and try to talk her out of her dangerous path. Or maybe I was just defending my territory. She said after we finished, "Come, honey. Let's continue this upstairs." She asked for another drink. I made one for each of us and we continued upstairs back in bed. She curled up in my arms and fell asleep. I couldn't fall asleep for some time. I just thought and listened to her breathing next to my chest. She moaned softly in her sleep. I made her breakfast and she ate like a lumberjack, laughing and giggling and talking a lot. She was happy and I was happy to have this kind of sex with my little beauty and to have my wife with me, even if only for a short time. Her perfect little body felt so good. I was still worried about her motives and plans for the future. For my future. What was in that beautiful head? That was the 66.0 question. A couple of days later, I agreed to meet Emily for lunch. I arrived at the restaurant before her and was already sitting at the table. When she entered, I stood up and she hugged me. She gave me a sweet smile and kissed me on the cheek next to my lips. As usual, after we settled in and ordered, I started talking. "So have you spoken to Lisa recently?" She closed on the house last Friday and we went out Friday night to celebrate. Yes, she told me about it. She also told me about her new well friend, as she calls him. She also said she had the most incredible sex with her husband in a long time. Emily looked at me with a play smile and continued, "What did you do to my sweet friend? You sexy monster." I laughed, as did. She has a pleasant musical laugh. I continued, "Really? What do you mean by friend?" I pretended I didn't understand. "Well, I thought she said she was having lunch with him today. His name is also Alex. It's probably innocent. She said he's a lawyer and I know she often works with lawyers in her business on contracts and other issues." I just smiled at Emily and tried to make it look casual while asking about her. That way she won't think I'm fishing for information. I fished it out, but I didn't want her to understand it. She looked beautiful today in a tight red dress with a slightly low-cut neckline. I tried not to look down at the curve of her full breasts and the top of her dress, as I asked, "So Emily, what's new with you lately?" "Well," was a myth. "The store is doing well. I sold 3 dresses this morning, and at the inflated prices we charge, I got a good commission. Actually, lunch is on me today, if you don't mind. Alex. I smiled and replied, sounds good. So how are things going in your personal life? Emily. She gave me a flirtatious smile and said, want to know? Seriously. Everything is fine. I think you know that I have no problems finding male companionship, but maybe I'm too selective. I have a standard to which I compare everyone. As you know, was I the standard she was using? Her look and tone of voice told me yes. I put my hand on her arm, looked into her eyes and said, Emily, honey, Lisa and I have our problems, but I'm married, and if the situation were reversed, I might be comparing my dates to you two. You're Lisa's best friend and I respect that. She massaged the top of my arm with her silky hand and said, I know. Alex, you're a good person and a good friend to me. To both of you and Lisa. She removed her hands, smiled and continued, let's order. Alex, I'm hungry. We talked while we ate, but only about normal things, laughing and me teasing her about her magnificent breasts. I told her I was willing to give up a month's salary to put my hands in her shirt. She laughed, her musical laugh. And if you're a good boy, I might let you have it for free. We both laughed. Emily is one of the most genuinely nice people I know. She has a pretty face and curvy figure. I may have chosen Lisa over her 15 years ago, but over the years I have often wondered how life would have turned out if I had married Emily instead of Lisa. Looking down at her full and perfect cleavage would change any man's mind, especially after Lisa and I started having problems. I could imagine living with Emily if something happened to Lisa. She is beautiful, kind and smart. She has a stake in an upscale boutique downtown. Emily is 36. Like Lisa, is single. But she said she gets a lot of male attention and goes on dates often. She and I had been exchanging semi-flirty glances at parties for years. There was something between us, I think, but I never explored it, because of her friendship with Lisa. However, I still wondered what it would be like to be with this energetic and courteous beauty. We dated, but not long enough to have sex. Reflecting on our conversation, Emily's description of Lisa's dinner partner yesterday looked suspiciously like the Alex she met last Friday, the one who was due to fly home on Saturday. I insisted on finding out exactly what she knew. Emily, dear, you know that Lisa and I are very attached to you. I am very attached to you. If something happened to Lisa, God forbid, you would be my choice for a new beginning. You're kind, smart and attractive, a true triple threat. If you'd ever heard anything that could hurt Lisa or me, you would tell me, right? Emily, realizing where I was going with this, leaned forward with her hands on the table and her breasts almost popped out at the top of her dress. She looked straight at me and returned to the conversation about Lisa and her new lover. Alex, you know that I am more than a little attracted to. You also know that, while I have no problem attracting the opposite sex, if it weren't for Lisa, I'd be your girlfriend in a heartbeat. Lisa is meeting that man again for lunch today. I got the impression that she had something going on with him. He's much younger and she says he is very handsome. I'm worried she might not know what she's doing. I love Lisa. She's been my friend since 5th grade. But you're also my friend for a long time. Thomas Hill. We even dated for a while. Then she looked straight into my eyes and her soft brown eyes sparkled, as she said, you are very special to me. Alex, darling. Then her look became more serious. Alex, I think Lisa is cheating again. I can talk to her about it if you want. But Lisa has been a little restless the last few years, as you know. I think the pregnancy affected her on a very basic level. She told me she wanted to have a more open marriage. She doesn't want to hide Alex. I told her unequivocally that she was making a mistake, one that could destroy her marriage. Be careful. Alex, this happened when I was in the 1st or 2nd year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I've always wanted a woman I could imagine myself with for the rest of my life, so I could rush home every night and make love for the rest of my days. I was starting to think now that maybe Emily was that woman, not Lisa. I thought Emily was a special person and I didn't want to involve her in my problems with Lisa. It wasn't fair to her. I didn't really want to use her, but I needed her help right now. I needed to know exactly what Lisa was up to. So I decided to tell Emily my concerns. Okay, Emily, here's how it goes. You know that after many years of marriage, some couples start to have problems and the sex becomes a little stale. Lisa and I played different games to try to keep things fresh. I know you know about her affair several years ago. I love Lisa. She's beautiful and I would do anything for her. Well, almost anything. Last Friday, Lisa surprised me with her desire to be with a young man who smiled at her restaurant we often go to this time to celebrate closing on a house. It was a large home sale and she worked hard showing it and advertising it. We went to our favorite bar after dinner and she wanted me to leave her there alone and come back for her later. I thought this was a continuation of our usual bar game. But she had previously agreed with this man to spend the evening to have sex, telling me that this was what she needed so long. Story short, she went to the man's hotel and sent me home. I didn't do that. Of course, I stayed at the motel. Emily lowered her eyes, then raised them and said, Alex, she told me everything that happened on Friday night. It's not something you hide from your best friend. She thinks it's something she still needs. Like you said, it's like finding a new kind of high. Something new and exciting. I'm very worried about this. Alex, this happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I promise I will be there for both you and Lisa. I love you both and I'm the biggest supporter of your marriage. I think it comes down to how much you are willing to tolerate to allow her to continue seeing this guy and become complicit in their ongoing affair. I know he called his office on Saturday morning and said he would be staying at least another week. This is definitely the guy she was with on Friday night. Look, Alex, I have to be careful, but if you need someone to listen or, let's say, big breasts to cry on, just tell me. I'm on dates most weekend nights, but I'll cancel if you need it. I appreciate it. Emily, I don't want to put you in a position where you have to choose between Lisa and me. That's not fair to you. I'm not going to put up with this and her lover. I'd rather lose her than let that happen. Emily thought for a moment and then said, well, you might not have to do that, but it might take a little patience to see if she can snap out of it. I'd also see a lawyer if I were you, because this young guy is a lawyer and I think he's quite good. I'd also protect my money if I were you just in case. I've already advised Lisa not to do this to you, but I'm not sure how much influence I have over her on this. She's my friend and I will keep her secrets to a certain extent. She thought for a few seconds and continued. If you want to talk more and it looks like you do, I can take the afternoon off today and we can meet at my house to talk further. Let me call the office. I can ask my assistant to delay my calls until the afternoon, saying that I am in a meeting. It's not unusual. I have to be careful what I agree to with Emily, but discussing over coffee at her house sounds innocent. We made an appointment for the afternoon and I drove to her townhouse. She was there when I arrived and had changed out of her stunning red dress into a white blouse, blue jeans and low heels. She is the co-owner of an upscale boutique that caters to professional women of means, so she is always impeccably dressed. Her townhouse is located in a trendy area near the city center and is spacious enough for one person. She had already opened and let a bottle of wine sit. When I arrived, she took my coat and I offered her my tie to hang with my coat. She handed me a glass of Chardonnay and, with a playful smile, said, well, honey, as you can see, I'm wearing a shirt, so where's your monthly salary? She teased me about my early comment and laughed with her hand over her mouth with a awry smile. I replied, careful lady, I might seriously take you up on your offer to get them for free. She immediately, still laughing, replied, anytime. Alex dear, anytime. She came in and sat in the overflowing chair next to the couch, and I sat on the edge of the couch next to her chair. She started the conversation. Okay, Alex. He's everything I learned from Lisa. She likes this man and plans to date him whenever she can. I also got the impression that she knew him before Friday night, although she didn't say so. She told me that she doesn't think you will allow her to date him openly, so she intends to date him secretly. Remember, Alex, she's a realtor. She doesn't have to account for her time to anyone, and she has access to many homes for sale that are empty, some of them furnished. She has a ready option to avoid hotels and motels. That would be easy to check on credit card bills, and she is where she needs to be. I hope she doesn't take advantage of it, and I told her not to, but I think she might. So you think she wants to continue dating this guy without telling me? I intervened. I'm afraid so, Alex. She specifically asked me how willing you are to just follow whatever she wants you to do. Plus, this guy is a lawyer, so the more they talk between classes, the more this side of him will come out and give her advice. I know his last name, it's Daniel. Alex Daniel. His headquarters is in Atlanta. I would definitely ask your lawyer friend at the firm for a recommendation and hire a private investigator. After a short pause, she continued. I feel like a complete creep telling you all this because it was in a private conversation between Lisa and I. But I don't agree with what she's doing, and I told her. So what's your money, Alex? I'll try to keep Lisa on the right path as best I can. She looked at me seriously when she finished. I just nodded, but noticed that somewhere between the beginning and end of her story, another button on her blouse had come undone, revealing even more of her breasts, which were already straining against the material. I wrote down the name Emily gave me in my notebook. She got up to go to the kitchen, and it looked like she was preparing a tray of snacks, just fruits and berries and stuff. So I went to the kitchen to see if I could help her. I was grateful for the information she gave me, but we really didn't have much else to talk about, and it felt like we were just playing house. She had her back to me in turn when I approached, and since we were between the sink and the island, we were almost touching each other. She didn't hesitate and put her hands on my shoulders, stood up and kissed me. When I showed surprise, she blushed and apologized for her impudence. Now I'm in deep trouble. I removed my hand and we looked at each other for a moment, both blushing a little. I wanted more than anything right now to pick her up, take her to her luxurious bedroom, and make love to this amazing creature. Instead, we returned to the living room and the remaining half of our bottle of Chardonnay. We were both trying to regain our composure after this brief but very sexy episode. Sitting on the sofa and in a darker mood, I told her, Emily, honey, we can't do this as much as I'd like to go further. This complicates things, and it's just wrong. After sighing, I continued, we can't let this happen again. I know, Alex. I know I'm in a worse ethical position than you. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. You have the right to protest her actions. I am her best friend and closest confidant. How can I date her? Let her trust me and still want to be with you. Alex, darling, it's not the same as if the four of us could get together and figure it out. I would have betrayed her trust, and as far as I know, she has never betrayed mine. If she asks for my honest advice, I will be going against my own interests by telling her to stay married to you. You're the most amazing woman I know, Emily, but as things stand, this tiny beauty is my wife, and depending on what happens in the near future, will probably remain my wife. I had another thought and added, but I still need to talk to my own lawyer tomorrow and hire a private investigator, no matter what else happens. At best, I might have to play along for the time being. Is that okay with you? Of course, stupid. As I stood up to leave, she continued with some hesitation. Alex, I'm not sure how to say this, so if I mess up, forgive me. You and I dated in college for a while and you chose Lisa. I respect this decision. Lisa is my friend, but I think I still have feelings for you. She looked down for a moment with a slight blush, and when she looked up at me, she said, I love you, Alex. There were tears in her eyes, and when she stood up, I let her bury her wet face into my chest, rubbing her back to comfort her. She raised her face to me, and I kissed her lovingly. I broke our kiss, touched her cheek with my hand and left. I looked back and she was just looking at me with teary eyes, raising her hand to the spot I touched on her cheek. She tilted her head slightly to the side and her chin trembled a little. I smiled and turned to go to my car. Part 3, Living in a Sea of Love. Over the next few days, Lisa and I had many arguments about the affair and we never came to any kind of agreement. They mostly ended in screams and neither of us wanted to give in. After that amazing night of love, there was no more sex between us and I moved into the guest bedroom. I got her best friend, Emily, involved to get information from Lisa. I felt very uncomfortable doing this, and so did Emily, but I needed to know. Since Emily and I had feelings for each other for a long time, we made the mistake of sharing a kiss. We discussed our misbehavior, and no matter how hard we tried, I think we were falling in love with each other. We still needed to discuss what would happen next. So today I'm back at Emily's luxurious townhouse to discuss the matter. She warned me against participating in that game. I told her, Emily, I still need to decide what to do next with Lisa and our lawyer. In the meantime, can you arrange a meeting with her to see what she is planning? You do realize you're putting me in a real ethical quandary, darling, don't you? She replied with a worried expression on her face. I know I'm asking a lot. Perhaps I shouldn't involve you further in a potential betrayal of friendship. I will be able to find out everything I need through the investigator to determine my next steps. Lisa and I can't get along the way we did 5 years ago. Emily, I think we might be finished. No, Alex, I will do it. What are you planning next? Emily asked with some concern in her soft voice. Give me some time and I'll tell you all about it. Over lunch here, say on Friday. I answered with a serious look. Emily thought for a moment, probably going through her weekly calendar in her mind. Maybe I'll make an appointment with Lisa for lunch tomorrow and then, in a more determined voice, she added, but I'll just let her talk. I don't want to incriminate her in anything. If she doesn't bring it up, I won't either. I quickly said okay. This makes me more comfortable with your participation. Let me know. Emily. We both stood up and hugged like brother and sister. We hugged and I kissed her on the cheek in my car. Before I started, I just sat and thought about this day. I guess that Emily was right about Lisa knowing this guy before Friday night and that this was all pre-planned. She used my desire for her own purposes. Then my thoughts turned to the sweet and curvy lady I had just left. Emily and I have always been on the verge of running into each other's arms over the years. I first started dating her in college, so this is nothing new for us. I thought about the day, our conversation, but mostly, I thought about what life could be like with Emily. Her kindness initially attracted me to her, but in a moment of weakness I fell for her cute, tiny ass and a pair of dark emerald eyes. These thoughts brought me back to my dilemma about what to do with the owner of those emerald eyes and her lawyer lover tonight. Lisa and I didn't argue and just ate dinner in relative silence. I made another excuse not to make love to Lisa and she accepted it as usual. I used the excuse of not feeling well again and went back to the guest bedroom lying awake. I thought about my next steps. They had to be legal and financial. My first stop was to be my lawyer at work for a referral to a lawyer to use in a private investigator to follow Lisa. I mentally went through my schedule for the next couple of days to find time to call companies and banks. Also, I needed to find time on Friday to meet with Emily, if she could meet with Lisa. Otherwise I would meet with her early next week. The next day I made coffee and a quick breakfast for Lisa, something like an egg mix. Something so she could take her own unopened cup of coffee to drink on the way to work or wherever. I drove to the office and called Jerry, my lawyer friend, to see what he would advise me to do. I didn't want to wait until lunch and after Jerry rescheduled a couple of appointments for me. We met in his office at 10. Jerry spoke first, saying, "You know what my position is at the firm. I represent them and do not take on outside clients. Under my employment contract, I wrote down the name of a lawyer who can help you. He can also provide you with a good investigator and forensic accountant. If required, You could also sue this guy for alienation of affection, for keeping her away from her legal spouse. It's worth a try, but it's a bit far-fetched. If you can get money from him. But that doesn't work in most states, especially states with a no-fault divorce system. You'll need to gather information, but my referral lawyer will be able to explain everything. I've contacted him, so all you have to do is call him when you get back to your office and confirm an appointment for 2 this afternoon, if that suits you. I thank you, Jerry. We shook hands and I headed straight to my office to call his referral. I called the bank and agreed to withdraw half of the funds from our joint savings account and joint household checking account. I opened a new saving account and transferred half of my savings there, telling them I would come by tomorrow to sign the signature card. I transferred my half of our household funds to my existing personal checking account. Since both of these accounts were set up as I, there was no problem transferring funds. I called the credit card company on our only joint account, told them I was no longer responsible for any charges as of this morning, and asked them to fax me the necessary forms to sign and return to them. I called my broker for advice on our investment accounts. With the financials sorted out, I called Emily at the store to see if she was seeing Lisa today. "Hello, darling," she said softly into the phone. "How are you today?" I replied, "It's okay." "How are you doing?" She said, "Okay. I think you're calling about a mutual friend of ours, and yes, we're meeting for lunch today. I'll be casual with her, so every will be fine. I'll just let her talk, honey. But if she doesn't talk about her lawyer friend, I won't bring it up and we'll talk about other things. I need to do it this way, honey." I was very pleased with her smart and empathetic approach, so I said, "I know, Emily, and I'm still a little embarrassed to involve you in this. Feel free to step away from all of this if you feel the least bit uncomfortable with it, and I'll find other information another way. But I still need to meet you when I can." She said, checking her calendar again. "Let's meet at 2 tomorrow at my house, no matter what else happens. How are things going with you?" "Okay. I'm meeting with a lawyer today and I've already taken care of all the financial issues. I've secured my half of the joint funds and taken care of the credit cards and investments. Yes, I can tomorrow and I can't wait, honey," I answered Ish. "That's my smart man," she said with a slight laugh. What I remember most from our entire conversation was that she called me darling. I know it's a little childish, but it made me smile. I decided to continue to keep my meetings with Emily on a friendly basis, with affection but without sex. Part of me still loved Lisa, but I was beginning to think that after 15 years of our marriage and a couple of years before that, this might be the end. As she started to move further away from me, I needed to know from Emily what was on Lisa's mind, and I needed to ask Lisa herself what her plans were if she would tell me them. My meeting with the lawyer went well. He gave me the advice that Jerry had started giving me earlier. He agreed that there was a possibility of a claim for alienation of affection, but it would not be easy. It will depend on the quality of information I can get from Emily and the private investigator. He said he would prepare some documents but would keep them ready till the right time. I gave him a copy of my will to review, and he asked me to prepare a list of beneficiaries for any insurances. He agreed with my financial arrangements. He prepared a list of some things that Lisa could be advised by her lawyer, Alex, and we discussed ways to counter them. He said he would hire a private investigator to start following Lisa tomorrow. This was all sorted out and I continued my routine at the office and later at home. Lisa made a great dinner. She's a really talented cook. I was too nervous about all my preparations and my upcoming meeting with Emily to sleep well. So I went to the office early in the morning to do all the necessary things to free up a few hours. In the afternoon I went to meet Emily at her luxurious townhouse. When I arrived, she answered the door wearing simple but expensive-looking summer clothes and appeared to be without a bra. She kissed me. I brought her a yellow rose. She inhaled its scent with a gentle smile of gratitude. She smelled wonderful. Then I held her at arm's length, trying not to look at the top of her dress, and said, "Emily, honey, we need to talk about something. If you make us lunch, I'll open a bottle of wine. Okay. Alex dear, she said in an almost musical voice. She heated up some vegetable soup she'd made herself and made a couple of sandwiches with Swiss cheese and pepper slices on a bed of spinach leaves with Dijon mustard, the rinds neatly cut off. We sat over soup and sandwiches with light Ren and just talked about normal things. We laughed, joked, and looked into each other's eyes for a bit, and yes, I sneaked a peek at the neckline of her dress a couple of times. After dinner, we took our wine into the living room and she recounted her conversation with Lisa. Lisa seemed reluctant to go into too much detail, probably on the advice of her lawyer lover. Emily knew how and got more out of her than she intended to say. It turns out that Alex, this happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. He's someone our law firm works with, and they flirted a couple of times during his visits to her boss. He finally took Lisa out to lunch a few days before she and I went out to dinner that fateful Friday. They agreed to arrange everything for Friday, using the ruse of my long-standing desire and her finally agreeing to fulfill it for me. Emily said Lisa laughed when she and the other Alex discussed how agreeable I could be. I think Lisa overestimated the strength of my so-called desire and my fixation on her beauty. She probably thought that I would not be willing or able to refuse her and agree to any proposal they made. Emily said it took a lot of effort not to stand up and hit Lisa in the face. Instead, she warned Lisa not to continue the relationship and asked her to reconcile with me in order to save the marriage. Lisa apparently told her that she thought was in love with this lawyer, Alex, and that they had discussed divorcing him and his wife. Yes, lawyer Alex is married to some sweet, unsuspecting girl in Atlanta. I guess they didn't want to hide from their side either. She told me, Alex, I really think Lisa plans to divorce you eventually, and I don't know if I can continue to be her friend. Please don't ask me to discuss this with her anymore. She grimly pulled the flash drive out of her purse and thrust it into my hand. Here, Alex, I recorded our conversation today, and I hope it helps you. But I won't and can't do it anymore. Alex, dear, this is too painful for a man I respect and love. Yes, Alex, I love you. She handed me the flash drive, got up from her chair and went to the window, half turning over her shoulder. She added, Alex, I'm so sorry about all this. I'll be here for you. I'll give you whatever you need, whether it's just a shoulder to cry on or more comfort. Please don't fall for any roles with Lisa and her friend Alex. Promise me this, darling. I got up from the sofa and walked over to her, hugging her. He kissed her on the cheek and, moving closer to her ear, whispered, I will not involve you anymore, and I should not have asked you to do what you have already done. After a second or two, I continued in a softer voice in her ear, even if she and her friend left me with nothing financial. If I could be with you, I would consider myself a very rich man. Emily dear. In a more normal voice, I added, but don't worry, I protected myself and did the right thing. I don't intend to ruin her, but I've already started the process. Emily spun around, dropping her glass of wine onto the carpet. Tears welled up in her eyes. About, please just hold me today. I need your strength. I hugged her tightly as she burst into tears, saying she lost her best friend today and just wanted to be comforted. Her tears were even more bitter. Realizing that she had betrayed the trust of her childhood friend, I decided to stay with her a little this afternoon. I led her into the bedroom and unbuttoned the dress, letting it fall to the floor. I fought every urge to place my hands on her magnificent breasts once they were in full view, and helped her lie down under the silk sheets and blankets. Emily is smart and professional, but for as long as I've known her, she has always been very open in expressing her deep emotions. Emily has been going through a lot of emotions lately, potentially losing her best friend and rekindling her feelings. For me, she must have been very confused. I sat down on the bed next to her, leaned over and whispered in her ear to just cry. I kissed her lightly on the cheek as she cried into her silk pillowcase. She said, almost in a whisper, make love to me. Alex, I need you today. Make love to me, tenderly. Darling. I gently told her that I couldn't do it, but maybe soon. Instead, I patted her lightly and said, "Go to sleep." I gave her as much comfort as I could until she fell asleep. I was nervous and very excited for this gorgeous woman. I tried my best to keep my hands from ending up in less neutral places on that curvaceous and firm body coiled beneath me. Making love to her, or even just touching her again, would degrade any potential relationship we might have in the future, if Lisa and I were going to split up, and I didn't see any other way. I didn't want to have any regrets if I started over with Emily. I stayed to clean up the kitchen and living room a bit while she slept and then quietly left. I came close to cheating on my cheating wife, but in my opinion, I didn't cross the line and let Emily do it. I thought about Emily the whole way back to the office. I watched Emily at parties from afar for years. Every New Year, Emily always found me in the crowd for one last slow dance and a soft New Year's kiss. Her elegant dress, her scent, and the poetry of her beautiful face and seductive neckline always affected me. She is not only beautiful, but also sweet, loving, and smart. Lisa also has these qualities, but perhaps to a lesser extent. I didn't know if Lisa knew about my meetings with Emily, but I knew that her little friend Alex was a lawyer and that a confrontation was coming and it would happen soon. I've been preparing for a possible breakup, so now it's time to find out what's really on Lisa's mind. At breakfast the following Sunday, just 2 days after I met Emily, I volunteered to cook breakfast for her. I told her that we had several issues to discuss. I made my signature spinach omelet with porridge and sliced strawberries and kiwi. Cholesterol is balanced by fiber, one might say. I made her a cup of coffee the way she likes it, with cream and sugar, and I made myself a cup of coffee black. I looked at Lisa with my most innocent and curious gaze and asked, "Honey, where do you think our relationship is going from here?" This is the question your boss asks you before he fires you. She had just finished stirring her coffee, looked at me and said, "I don't quite know what you mean, Alex." I looked at her when she stopped interfering and said, "Well, speaking of people we know named Alex, I'm asking where your relationship with him is going and what role will I play?" This made her think for a minute. She began mindlessly stirring her coffee again. She took a sip and said through the cup, "We agreed, didn't we, that you would let me see him sometimes, thinking that you might sort of go along with it, be there for us. I thought you'd agree to do this for us to improve our relationship and love. Remember, Alex, it was your fantasy to see me with another man. I thought it might help improve our relationship, and my Alex and I are willing to help you with possible." That was an amazing statement. I must say she was deliberately vague. I explained to her, "Lisa, I actually expressed a fantasy about this a long time ago, but I thought I made it clear that it would be painful for me if you actually did it. I asked you not to go to him on that terrible Friday. I'd rather we work on our problems together." After a second or two, I continued, "I know this. Alex is someone you've known for a long time, and you saw him before that Friday night and you saw him after. You're trying to justify an affair using a fantasy that I don't even have. You're a smart girl, Lisa. You might have guessed how hurt I was based on our previous conversations. I know he's a lawyer and you two discussed how Alex would leave his wife. Yes, I also know this guy's married to some poor, unsuspecting girl in Atlanta. Well, Alex, I'd say you know a lot. I hope you and Emily will be very happy without me at all your little dinners." Her indignation intensified as she sat opposite me, folded her hands and nodded decisively. That gesture and all her previous comments told me what I needed to know. This meant that there was nothing more in our marriage. This suggested that even if she stopped seeing Alex, another Alex or Bill or Dick or Harry would eventually appear. It was an anticlimax for our relationship. I knew it, and I think it seeped into Lisa's cunning little brain as well. I made a decision and outlined the plan to her. "There's one more thing, Lisa. Around 8 tomorrow morning, my lawyer will serve you with a divorce notice naming Alex as a co-defendant. Before I let this go any further, I just wanted to know if you had any remorse or interest in saving our marriage." Now it's clear that no. "My dear green-eyed wife," she instantly retorted by shouting at me. "Since Alex is a lawyer, I can play this game, mister." My response was just as quick. "You better know something else. I have withdrawn 50 of our joint funds and investments from these accounts, so you cannot block my share of the money. I didn't take more than I was legally entitled to. And if you don't challenge the process, I'll leave you the house. I don't need it anyway. But when all is said and done, my lawyer may insist that you buy out my share of the house, at least to some extent. I have no intention of punishing you, Lisa, even though you have humiliated me with yet another extramarital affair. I took a sip of coffee because my throat was dry and continued. I won't create problems for you at work and I don't want to interfere with Alex's marriage. I'm not going to give you my retirement funds and I won't take yours. I have conversations and investigative reports that should not see the light of day. If you agree to these general terms of divorce, you get it. I get peace of mind and we can both move on with our lives. Take it or leave it, baby. Lisa finished her coffee, put the cup down with a clatter and said, "Great. I get the house and buy out your share and half of all joint assets. You are selling the boat because I want half of it too. You don't say I want it anyway, and we bought it with common money. I'll keep the Mercedes. It's mine and I need it for work. You can keep your beloved Jeep Cherokee." I looked across the table at this beautiful and petite woman who had been the love of my life for 15 years of marriage. I thought about all the times I had the privilege of touching her incredible little body and ended it all with one word: done. We didn't quite agree peacefully, but quite peacefully. I really didn't want to punish Lisa. Her punishment will be that she will continue to be confused in her life. If she cheated on me with Alex, she will cheat on him with someone else. We came to an agreement and told our lawyers, but they still needed to negotiate and iron out the final terms. It suddenly dawned on me that my legal skills that I had been using at breakfast were really over 2 years of meetings and 15 years of marriage. Touching, caressing sex and looking into her incredible green eyes have sunk into oblivion. I was now starting all over again. I knew that I would miss Lisa in some way and that part of me would always have feelings for her. No matter what I do or where, I will always miss touching her and I will be jealous of any man who receives such an honor. I even thought about our last evening of passionate love and how much I would miss it. Then I thought about the novels that two I knew about and how many others I didn't know about. I won't miss the worry, hassles and sleepless nights it brought me. I divorced Lisa and ended up marrying Emily, and we live in her townhouse. It's close to work for both of us and it's where we fell in love. Her two other friends were bridesmaids, but Lisa was not present. In fact, Lisa didn't get her man either, since Alex stayed with his wife. Incredibly, she forgave him. However, she forced him to end his relationship with Lisa and hand over her firm's account to a junior employee. I guess in her head it was just the first blow and she gave him a second chance. Mostly, I think, it was because they had children who needed a father. His departure from Lisa's firm must have raised questions among management and it could have harmed Lisa's chances of advancement. I didn't know and didn't want to know anymore. After the divorce, Emily felt a lot of guilt about her role in it, which destroyed her relationship with the friend with whom she had been friends since she was 10. I came to her townhouse to give her what calm I could. She was dressed in an impeccably fashionable dress and high heels. She burst into tears feeling that she was also going through a divorce from Lisa. She kissed me tenderly and then said, as I gave her one yellow rose, "Alex, now darling, please make love to me. Make love to me tenderly today. My love." Lisa still works at the firm and is quite successful. I received a small amount from Alex for a breach of affection claim, which he did not contest. Lisa's own words did the trick. We shared the house with Lisa and kept half of all other joint assets, as our finances were fairly divided. Lisa later admitted to me that she made a mistake by not respecting me properly. She and Emily began to communicate a little, but the old feelings are still distant. Lisa expressed a desire to see Emily again in the future, but without me. Emily and I started going on dates right after the divorce, where I would call her at work on a phone. I knew she wouldn't answer and asked the clerk who answered the phone, "Hi, is Emily Griggs here?" I could hear the clerk laughing as she turned to Emily and said, "Miss Griggs, you have a boyfriend. Should I tell him you're busy?" I can almost hear her roll her eyes as she picks up the phone and uses her standard greeting tone. "Emily Griggs, State Street Boutique. Miss Griggs, this is Alex Anderson. Are you free? On Friday evening, she shuffles through the papers, pretending to check her calendar, and says, yeah, looks like I'm free. What are you up to, Mr. Anderson? Would you like to meet for dinner and dancing? I know a great place sounds tempting. This happened when I was in the first or second year of junior high school. I think I was about 13 years old. I grew up in the countryside. I mean, Mr. Anderson. I can hear it in her voice as she tries to suppress her laughter. You can pick me up at 8 at my house. Do you have an address? Then she laughs. I gently chide. Emily, stop it, she says in a formal tone. That sounds great, Mr. Anderson. See you then, she laughs quietly. You are absolutely incredible. Darling, I love you, I say, and she answers in a quiet voice. Thank you for calling, Mr. Anderson. Then whispering, I love you too. We laughed a lot that Friday night. At the reactions of her partner and the staff, I chose a place that was different from my usual fine dining experience. It was a nice family restaurant with a nice vintage whirly tea jukebox in the corner. After we ordered, I excused myself, walked over to the machine, inserted a quarter and pressed a few buttons. As the first few chords of the 1959 classic Sea of Love by Phil Phillips began to play from the speakers, Emily's eyes widened and she exclaimed, "Oh God, Sea of Love, my favorite song of all time. Let's dance, darling." No one really dances here, but I took my beautiful companion in my arms and we danced to Sea of Love while I sang along to Phil Phillips in my acceptable baritone. Looking into the tear-stained face, I love, come with me, my love, to the Sea of Love. I want to tell you how much I love you. Come with me to the Sea of Love. This classic 50s song has become our go-to song ever since, and the first line always brings tears to Emily's eyes. That night, when we returned to our townhouse, Emily made love to me longer and more passionately than ever. The only thing I could think as I clung to life was, thank you, Phil Phillips, wherever you are. We are the most sentimental couple in the world and regularly receive sighs from our married friends, some of whom have everything in their lives distracting them from their marriages. For her birthday, a year after our wedding, I took Emily to the most luxurious restaurant in town, with a band and a dance floor. I gave the conductor 50 to play. Yes, you guessed it. Sea of Love. Emily wore a beautiful dress and all eyes were on us as she left her yellow rose on the table and followed me onto the dance floor. I always give her one yellow rose for dates. A red rose is for love. I know, but we are proud that, in addition to our deep love for each other, we are also best friends. We call our nights date nights because I ask her in advance and she can accept or decline. This shows the respect we have for each other and the fact that we don't take each other for granted. I noticed how one man stood up near the dance floor, took his wife by the hand and said, "Come on, honey, remember how we love to dance to this song." Emily and I are infectious. We have a little girl named Claire. She is kind and sweet and will be the spitting image of her mother, true to her name. She is the light of our lives. Emily and I don't play silly games to keep our sex life fresh and we never get tired of touching each other. Claire often says, rolling her beautiful, soft brown eyes, "Will you guys stop? You're embarrassing me." We just hug her and fold her into a family hug, tickling her until she laughs helplessly. Claire invites her girlfriends over for a sleepover and they can't believe our loving behavior with our constant KOI touching, hugging and kissing in her presence. They ask Claire what's wrong with her parents. I once heard Claire answer this question to a friend. Mom says they live in a sea of love, whatever that means. For the past 10 years we've made love every night, at least once. I never take her for granted and every night is like our first date when I have to go on business trips. She arranges a shopping trip for her store and goes with me. We dine at the best places during our trips and always make time for ourselves, even if it's just lying on the beach. When Claire is around, I take Emily away from her chores and dance with her humming tunes. I love singing to her. When Claire was little, she would hug our legs when we danced to join us. Now she just rolls her eyes but smiles. I think she secretly enjoys all the love and care she gets when we're all together. My little family is the most valuable thing I have. I keep my promise to rush home every night to make love to Emily for the rest of my life. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode of the story, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notifications for updates.